Bobgar here, and welcome back. It's wrap-up time for $10 Land Destruction Reanimator. I ended up playing a lot of matches with this. Obviously, I didn't post all of them just because I don't think, one, I'd have to edit 12 matches, and two, I think people would get bored. I went 6 and 6, so I went about 50%. Felt a lot like the other Land Destruction deck, where it felt like if the other player was on a slightly slow deck, a deck that tended to stumble a little bit, you would just run them over with your Land Destruction and kind of combo off and do it. And if they were pretty fast, or if they had pretty good hate or pretty good disruption, they would usually win. It wasn't quite that simple. I think I posted in the last video I posted, which is actually not, the first four were the first 4 matches I played, and the last one was actually the 10th or 12th match I played, I don't remember, somewhere towards the end. And I posted it mostly because I said some things in there that I thought were a little bit insightful about how I felt about the deck. And it felt like the deck, 50% of the time, you know, basically the times we win, was really, really good. It was powerful. It would turn 3, destroy 2 lands, sometimes turn 4, destroy another land. It was really good. But when it fizzled, it obviously just did nothing. And it didn't fizzle often because it's built pretty reliably, but it still fizzled about 20 to 25% of the time. And so there was that factoring in that made you just lose games off of that. And again, about 20 to 25% of sideboarded games, your opponent would have the right hate or so much hate that you just couldn't really get your stuff off, and you would just lose to that as well. So those two things are the reason the deck is probably at about 50%. It also had a little trouble with hyper aggro decks that could just kind of rush you down before you even had a chance to get out your combo. I mean, a 5/5 on turn 3 is great, and destroying 2 lands is great, but if they only need 1 land to operate, they're like playing goblins or something, and they have like a swarm of little guys that can swing past you anyway. Or if they're playing Delver of Secrets, that one I did post, you got to see the Delvers just got out. He flipped them the first, he flipped 1 turn 1, flipped 1 turn 2, and then it was like, what do? I can't get out enough stuff to defend against that in time, so I got run over. So let's take a look at what did well in the deck and what didn't. Woodfall Primus was by far the most powerful target for reanimation, especially for Footsteps of the Goryo, and then also I think for Makeshift Mannequin. I thought it was an all-star in the deck. Faithless Looting was the best looter we had, mostly because even though it's slight card disadvantage, being able to do it twice is really powerful, and more importantly, you draw the 2 cards and then you get to decide to discard. So sometimes you don't have the creature in hand, but you get him during the draw too. And it's nice to be able to discard him right away so that you could, if you didn't get around to playing Faithless Looting until turn 2, you could next turn reanimate him right away or whatever. Or if you have enough mana up to, you have like 4 mana, you can Faithless Looting, even though you don't have a creature in hand, find the creature, dump it, and then go off with Footsteps of the Goryo that turn. So I thought that one was really good. Footsteps of the Goryo itself, I think it was the strongest reanimator just because you get it off a turn early, and because we built it around the synergies for the deck. So I mean, that one's kind of obvious. It was the marquee card because it was the marquee synergy in the deck, but I thought it was really good. And then the underperformers. Terastodon might have been the worst of the underperformers. I wanted it to be good, but it's just not super good with Footsteps of the Goryo. Giving your opponent 3/3/3s is a little too much, even though you do get to obviously destroy 3 lands, which is super powerful. So it usually felt like destroy 2 lands of theirs and 1 of yours, and then they get 2/3/3s and you get 1/3/3, and that's fine. It's mediocre, but I still think you have the advantage in that exchange. If you do Footsteps of the Goryo, obviously the Terastodon goes away. So he was better with the other reanimations, but it's still, he was a little awkward. Sheoldred was actually really good. I really thought Sheoldred was great. I got the X here because I wanted to pick the 3 weakest, and 2, it often felt like a win more. Like you would never reanimate Sheoldred first. You would reanimate Sheoldred when you had pretty much already choked your opponent out and you just wanted to close the door. And so I'm not sure Sheoldred was absolutely necessary. But it was very good. I really like the fact that you could put it in and then, and obviously you can't use Footsteps of the Goryo with it. That was the other problem with Sheoldred. But you put it in, and then on your opponent's upkeep, they have to kill a creature. And a lot of times that kept us in the game against aggro decks. So that felt pretty good. And then the last card that wasn't very good was just Tormenting Voice. I probably put a little too much search in the deck, or at least that kind of search. I probably should have gone with something else for the last slot. And Tormenting Voice is just a little slow, not super good, not super powerful. I think there are probably better choices we could have put there, but it did its job well enough. It was just kind of the weakest card. Even Cathartic Reunion had some issues because you really don't like to top deck it late, and you do run out of cards sometimes. So if you top deck it late and don't have any cards to discard to it, it just kind of sits in your hand. But at least it gives you hope that in 2 or 3 turns you'll be able to turn your hand into something good if it's not. And I think one thing I didn't put on as an overperformer, but Makeshift Mannequin was much better than I thought. In fact, I think I would rate Makeshift Mannequin over Unburial Rites in the order of how good reanimation is for us in this deck, just because Makeshift Mannequin, the fact that when they target it you sacrifice a creature, synergizes so well with so many of our creatures anyway, and it basically makes them unpathable, and that's actually a super powerful effect. Cloudshift has kind of the same problem that Sheoldred and Terastodon have a little bit, and that is good if you're already ahead. Like, it's kind of a win more, but it's not, I mean, they're not good on their own, so sometimes you just get them and they feel bad. So that one's another one that was kind of a candidate for potentially having an X on it. Although when you did get it off, it felt really, really good. And so let's talk about upgrades or potential upgrades. So I haven't built an upgraded version of this deck. The biggest thing that needed to be upgraded is lands. The Scry lands are kind of nice. The Tri-land is terrible. What the deck really needs, I think, are fast lands, just because we want to be able to cast our spells really fast. Simian Spirit Guide along the same lines allows us to get our combo out of turn early. I think Through the Breach could be good, either a couple in the main board, maybe a couple in the sideboard, both because I think it's powerful with persist creatures, and I think it does a really good job of giving us an alternate way to get creatures into play, so that if there's a lot of graveyard hate and we happen not to draw our anti-graveyard hate, we're not totally shut off. It gives us another thing to do. So I think Through the Breach could be good. And then Moldgraph Monstrosity. So when I was originally building this deck, I tried them. I feel like maybe I should experiment with them a little bit more. So after I played against Platinum Angel, I looked it up, and there have been a couple posts throughout the years of various forms of this style of deck. And one of the common things to put in them is Moldgraph Monstrosity, because it has a really good death effect. When it dies, you get to put 2 creature cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield. And yeah, I mean, that's obviously super, super strong. But it might be better than Sheoldred, it might be better than Terastodon, but it does have the same problem with them, where it feels a little bit like a win more. Maybe if you built it with more of a dredge package where you managed to dump a lot of your deck into your graveyard faster, it would be better, because you would be more likely to get 2 hits off it right away. But yeah, I wasn't convinced when I was testing with it, but it probably warrants more testing. I only tried 1 or 2 games with it, whereas this other one obviously I played 12 matches with, so it might be better than I gave it credit for. I wanted to at least mention it as a possibility, since it was the thing that I saw in other deck lists that I didn't spend a lot of time testing with. I think Makeshift Mannequins, I think I just said this, but I think Makeshift Mannequins were in general better than Unburial Rites, so I would up the Makeshift Mannequin count all the way to 4, maybe reduce Unburial Rites to 2. Actually, I'd probably just, like this last blip says, I would just cut the Unburial Rites altogether, probably replace them with Through the Breach, and that way we can just cut white. Cut the Unburial Rites, cut the Cloudshifts, cut white completely, and then probably try blue, because blue has looters, which are really nice. Like Jacevin's Prodigy would be a really cool card in the deck, I think. And Serum Visions would help us early. We are kind of short on 1-drops, so the ability to look through our cards and scry and draw some extra cards would be really powerful. And one recent version of Instant Speed Reanimator that I was looking at ran pieces of the puzzle, and I think this one's really neat. 3 mana is a little expensive, but it does kind of do exactly what you want it to do. It gets you an instant or sorcery into your hand, i.e. one of your reanimators, and it dumps the rest of, or I guess it gets you 2 into your hand, and then it dumps the rest of those cards into the graveyard, which are probably all your creatures, maybe a couple lands. So it kind of is a search card to dig 5 deep, which is more than any of our other search does, and it gives you it puts the important ones into your hand. I mean, the only time it'll suck is if you're short on mana, but if you're at 3 mana, you pretty much have enough mana anyway. So that one could be interesting to play with as a 1 or 2 of, maybe even a 3 of. And so yeah, those are my suggestions. That's the deck. I had a lot of fun playing it this week. I got grumpy in 1 or 2 of the matches. Hopefully that didn't come across too strongly. I wasn't like mad at my opponent, but it can be a little tilting to play combo decks in general, just because when you're winning, oh my god, does it feel good. But when you're losing, it is just painful. It's just like, well, I have a pile of stuff in my hand that does nothing. Usually you feel like you are statistically unlikely to be where you are, and usually you are, because I mean, like I said, it happens 20-25% of the time. Sometimes it's because your opponent's picking your hand apart, and I might whine about that a little bit, and then at that point I have no reason to whine. That's just the way the game goes. But sometimes you just don't draw. Like I think one of the games, I drew a bunch of cards after I lost, and I was like, man, I haven't gotten any of my Unburial Rites, and they were the only thing I really needed this game to win. And there were 3 in the last 7 cards in my library or something ridiculous. So, I mean, it happens. I had a lot of fun with this deck. I think this would be a great deck for like a Friday Night Magic or something like that. I never think you'll see it at the top tables, but you get to do unfair things, and it's a lot of fun to do unfair things. I enjoy it a lot, at least. So I highly recommend trying this deck out, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.